I overheard my girlfriend making fun of me in front of her best friend. It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday night. I'd spent the whole afternoon fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom and cleaning up the yard. By the time evening rolled around, I was beat. My girlfriend, Rachel, had her best friend, Evan, over. They were out on the back porch, drinking beer and sharing stories. I didn't think much of it. Evan was one of those smooth-talking types, the kind of guy who always had a clever joke or a wild story ready to go. I figured I'd leave them to their conversation and crash on the couch for a bit. But then I went to grab my phone charger from the dining table, which happens to be right next to the sliding glass door leading to the porch. That's when I heard Rachel's voice. I mean, don't get me wrong, Evan. Ben is a good guy. He's stable, reliable. But sometimes, I don't know, he's just boring. My stomach dropped. Evan chuckled in response. Well, boring's better than being a screw-up, right? Rachel sighed. Yeah, I guess. But when I see other couples, like the way they travel, or the way their lives seem so exciting, I just wonder if this is it for me. If I've settled into something small. I didn't hear anything after that. My ears were ringing, my chest felt tight, and I could feel my face burning. I backed away from the table, my phone charger still sitting there. I retreated to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed lid of the toilet. Boring, small, settled. The words kept circling in my head. I'd worked so hard to build a steady life for us, to make her feel secure, to show her I was dependable. And now it felt like all of that just wasn't enough. I must have sat in that bathroom for 20 minutes, staring at the floor tiles like they had answers. Rachel's words kept replaying in my head. Boring, small, settled. It wasn't even the words themselves. It was the way she said them. Like she'd been holding them in for a long time, just waiting for someone to ask. When I finally pulled myself together, I splashed some cold water on my face and looked in the mirror. I wasn't angry, not yet. I just felt hollow, like something had been carved out of me. I decided to wait it out. I wasn't ready to face her or Evan, and I didn't trust myself to say anything without my voice cracking. So, I went to the garage, under the pretense of organizing my tools. The faint sound of their laughter drifted in through the window, and every chuckle felt like a punch to the gut. Eventually, Evan left. I heard the front door close, the muffled goodbye, and then Rachel moving around in the kitchen. I considered pretending to be asleep, just avoiding the conversation entirely. But something inside me, maybe pride, maybe just raw hurt, pushed me to walk back into the house. Rachel was at the sink, rinsing out their beer bottles. She looked up when she heard me enter, her face lighting up with a smile. Hey, you disappeared. Evan was wondering where you went. I couldn't smile back. I couldn't even look at her directly. I was in the garage. She nodded, oblivious to the storm building inside me. Well, we didn't drink all the beers. I saved you one in the fridge. She was acting so normal. Like she hadn't just told her best friend, she felt like she'd settled for me. I grabbed the beer from the fridge, cracked it open, and leaned against the counter. For a moment, I thought about letting it slide, about pretending I hadn't heard anything. But then I asked, do you think I'm boring, Rachel? Her hand froze on the dish she was washing. Slowly, she turned her head toward me, her smile faltering. What? Why would you ask that? I took a sip of the beer, my throat dry despite the cold drink. I heard you talking to Evan. I heard what you said about me. Her face went pale. There was silence, thick, heavy silence that settled in the space between us, and then, she said the one thing I was afraid of hearing. I didn't mean it like that, but we both knew she did. Rachel put down the dish she was holding, her hands trembling slightly as she grabbed the edge of the counter. Ben, look, it wasn't like that. You weren't supposed to hear that conversation. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, no kidding. She winced, her face scrunching up like she'd bitten into something sour. We were just venting, talking. You know how people exaggerate stuff when they're with friends. I stared at her, the beer bottle cold in my hand. That didn't sound like exaggeration, Rachel. It sounded honest. Her eyes met mine, and for a brief second, I thought I saw guilt flash across her face. But then she sighed and ran a hand through her hair. You've got to understand, Ben. It's not about you, okay? It's about me. Sometimes I just feel stuck, like my life is on autopilot. And yeah, sometimes that frustration spills over into our relationship. I shook my head slowly. Stuck? Autopilot? What does that even mean? She hesitated. I don't know. Maybe I just thought my life would look bigger by now. Like, more adventurous, more exciting. And sometimes it feels like we're just here, doing the same thing every day. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd worked hard to give us stability, a home, steady income, predictability. I thought those were good things. But now they felt like flaws being thrown in my face. Is it me, Rachel? My voice cracked slightly as I asked the question. Am I holding you back? No, she said quickly, stepping closer. God, Ben. No. You're amazing. You're kind and dependable, and you care about me. Sometimes I get in my head, and I think about other people our age traveling the world, or starting businesses, or doing crazy stuff, and I wonder if I don't know, chosen the safe route. The safe route, I repeated, the words sharp in my mouth. Rachel's eyes were glassy now, and she reached out to touch my arm. I flinched without meaning to, and she pulled her hand back. I'm sorry, Ben. I really am. I didn't mean to hurt you. I set the beer bottle down on the counter and rubbed my face with both hands. Part of me wanted to shout, to ask her if she'd been feeling this way the whole time we'd been together. But another part of me, some stubborn, tired part, just felt done. Look, I said, my voice low. I need some air. Before she could respond, I grabbed my jacket from the chair and stepped outside. The night air was sharp against my face, but at least it didn't carry the weight of Rachel's words. I sat down on the porch steps and stared out at the dark street, my mind racing. She said she didn't mean it. She said it was just venting. But could I really believe that? Could I just go back inside and pretend I didn't hear the truth hiding behind her apology? For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't sure if we could come back from this. I didn't go back inside right away. Instead, I drove across town to Nate's place. Nate and I have been friends since high school. He's the guy you call when you're on the edge, calm, blunt, and always with a beer in the fridge. I figured if anyone could help me make sense of this mess, it was him. When I knocked on his door, it was almost midnight. He opened it in sweatpants and a hoodie, holding a bag of chips. Ben? Dude. You okay? No, I said flatly. Can I come in? Inside, I collapsed onto his couch, and he tossed me a beer before sitting down across from me. All right, spill. I told him everything. How I overheard Rachel, the words she used, the way she said them. I even told him about the awkward moment in the kitchen and how I couldn't bring myself to confront her properly. Nate listened, frowning slightly, fingers tapping the side of his beer can. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. Man, that's rough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That's gotta hurt like hell. It does, I muttered. He leaned back, studying me carefully. You know, Ben, sometimes people say stuff they don't mean. They're drunk, they're venting, whatever. But sometimes they say stuff they do mean, and they just don't expect you to hear it. I felt that like a gut punch. So what are you saying? You think she meant it? Nate hesitated, like he was picking his words carefully. I think she's been thinking about this for a while, and it came out because she was comfortable enough around Evan to say it out loud. The thought made me nauseous. You have two choices, Nate continued. You can pretend you didn't hear it, sweep it under the rug, and hope it doesn't come up again. Or you can talk to her. Really talk to her. Ask her if she's happy. Ask her if she even wants to be here anymore. My chest felt tight. What if I don't want to hear the answer? Nate sighed. Then you're just delaying the inevitable, man. We sat there in silence for a while, the hum of Nate's fridge filling the gaps. Eventually, I stood up. Thanks, Nate. I needed this. Anytime, man. And hey, whatever happens, you deserve someone who doesn't make you question whether you're enough. I left feeling heavier than when I arrived. Nate was right. I needed to talk to Rachel. Really talk to her. But deep down, I already knew what I'd hear. I just wasn't ready to face it yet. The next morning, Rachel acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, asked if I wanted eggs, and told me about a sale she'd seen online for some sneakers I might like. I played along, answering her questions, nodding when appropriate, but inside, it felt like I was watching her from behind glass. Everything felt distant, staged, that I couldn't stop thinking about Nate's advice. Ask her if she even wants to be here anymore. But every time I tried to bring it up, my throat tightened, and the words stuck somewhere deep in my chest. A few days passed, and that's when I started noticing it first. It was subtle. Rachel texting more often, smiling down at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Then, she started mentioning Evan more. Oh, Evan said there's this new taco place we should try. Evan told me about this book he thinks I'd love. Evan sent me this meme. It's so us. It wasn't weird, not at first. They'd always been close friends, and I didn't want to be the guy who gets jealous over nothing. But then came the nights when she'd say, I'm grabbing drinks with Evan after work. Don't wait up, okay? Or the weekend she'd casually announce, Evan and I are going hiking tomorrow. You wouldn't really enjoy it. It's one of those intense trails. I'd nod, smile, and tell her to have fun. And then I'd sit in our quiet apartment, staring at the same four walls, wondering when it became normal for my girlfriend to share more of her time with someone else than with me. One night, I finally tried to talk to her. She was getting ready to head out. Another evening with Evan. She was wearing makeup, her hair styled just right, and this dress I hadn't seen in months. You're spending a lot of time with him lately, I said, trying to sound casual. Rachel paused, her hand hovering over her purse. Yeah, I guess I am. Is everything okay? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me then, and for a second, I thought she might tell me something real, something honest. But instead, she just smiled faintly and said, Ben, we've been together for so long. Don't you think it's normal for couples to do their own thing sometimes? I nodded because what else could I do? But as she walked out the door, something deep in my gut twisted. This wasn't normal. Not like this. And yet, I still couldn't bring myself to ask the one question I was terrified of hearing the answer to. Do you even want to be here anymore? Rachel started coming home later and later. Sometimes it was a quick text, grabbing dinner with Evan, don't wait up. Other times, nothing at all. At first, I tried to make excuses for it. She's busy. She's stressed. She's just enjoying time with a friend. But eventually, the excuses stopped fitting, and I stopped trying to make them. One Saturday, she left early in the morning, saying she and Evan were going to check out some art exhibit downtown. She didn't invite me. I spent the day cleaning the apartment, fixing little things around the place, and scrolling mindlessly through my phone. Around 6 p.m., I noticed she'd posted a photo on Instagram, her and Evan, drinks in hand, both smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. The caption read, Saturdays are better with the best company. Tropical drink sparkles, best company. That phrase sat heavy in my chest for hours. When she finally came home, it was almost midnight. I was on the couch, TV on, though I wasn't watching anything. Hey, she said softly, dropping her purse by the door. You're still up? Yeah. She hesitated, then walked to the kitchen to pour herself some water. It was a good day. You should have come. I looked at her, exhaustion creeping into my voice. Rachel, you didn't invite me. She froze with the glass halfway to her lips, her eyes flickering over to me. For a second, I thought she'd finally say something real, something that would explain all of this. But instead, she sighed and said, Ben, please don't make this into something it's not. And that was the end of it. But it was something. She started dressing differently, putting more thought into her outfits, wearing perfume I hadn't smelled on her in months. Her phone, which used to be left casually on the coffee table, was now always face down. I started sleeping on the couch some nights, pretending I'd fallen asleep watching TV. Truthfully, I just couldn't bear to lie next to her while my mind played out every worst-case scenario. The distance between us felt like it had become an actual thing, like I could reach out and run my fingers through the empty space where our relationship used to be, and then, one evening, it happened. She was getting ready to go out again, and something inside me snapped. Are you in love with him, Rachel? She froze mid-step, her hand clutching her purse strap. Her eyes met mine, and for a long moment, she said nothing. The silence stretched between us, and I felt like I was holding my breath underwater. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. 3 words. That's all it took to shatter whatever was left of us. She walked out the door, and I didn't stop her, because deep down, I already knew. Rachel didn't come home that night, or the next. She sent me a text the following afternoon. I think I need some space. I'm staying at Evan's for a while. Please don't hate me. I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. But what could I say? That I didn't see this coming? That I didn't feel it every moment she drifted further away? I didn't reply. Over the next few days, the silence in our apartment became unbearable. Every corner of the place felt like a ghost of us. Her half-empty shampoo bottle in the shower, her favorite mug in the sink, the blanket she always wrapped herself in during movie nights still draped over the couch. I tried to go about my routine, but everything felt hollow. I'd sit down for dinner at our little two-person dining table and instinctively glance at her empty chair. A week later, she came by to pick up some of her things. She knocked softly before letting herself in. I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. "Hey," she said. Her voice was quiet, unsure. "Hey." Rachel looked different. Lighter, maybe. Like some invisible weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "I didn't want to just leave things like this," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You deserve better than that." I swallowed hard. "Are you with him now?" Her eyes darted away from mine. I think I've been with him in my head for a while, Ben, and I'm so sorry for that." I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. "Was it me?" I asked. "Was I not enough?" She shook her head quickly, tears pooling in her eyes. "No, Ben, you were enough. You've always been enough. But I wasn't. Not for this. Not for us. I stopped being able to see a future here. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that we could fix this if we tried hard enough. But I was so tired. Tired of being the one left holding the pieces while she walked away. She packed a few bags, pausing occasionally to glance at me, as if she wanted me to say something that would change everything. But I didn't. When she walked out the door for the last time, she turned back once. "You're going to find someone who sees you for everything you are, Ben. I mean that." And then she was gone, and I sat on the couch for hours, watching the sunlight fade and the shadows creep across the floor. It's been a few months now. Rachel and Evan are together. Social media makes it impossible not to know that. They post pictures of trips I'd always wanted to take with her, share inside jokes and captions, and smile like they're the only two people on the planet. I unfollowed them both. Sometimes, when it's quiet and I'm alone, I think about what Rachel said that night. I was right then. I just couldn't tell you. I think she knew, long before I overheard that conversation, that she was already halfway out the door. And I think part of her stayed because she didn't want to hurt me. But in the end, she did anyway. That I've started putting myself back together, piece by piece. I joined a gym, picked up an old hobby, and I'm even thinking about taking a solo trip somewhere, just to prove to myself that I can. Some nights, though, when the apartment is too quiet and the memories are too loud, I let myself wonder. If I hadn't overheard that conversation, would she still be here? But deep down, I know the answer. She was already gone.